All right, awesome. We're going to get things rolling, guys. Again, thanks for hopping on. Guys, welcome to week 3 of the 4-week installment of Wisdom Wednesdays. Each week we aim to bring you guys a prominent name in the lacrosse world, just get an opportunity to hear from parts of their story. Just ask them some questions, have them break down some film and skills to help you guys develop as better lacrosse players. And just, guys, as a reminder, at the end, we're going to give you guys an opportunity to ask our guests questions of your own. You can submit those questions in the chat at the bottom, all right? So without further ado, tonight we have Maryland native right here from Towson, FCA Club national team player, played his high school ball in the MIA at Loyola Blakefield. He then went on to play at the University of Maryland, where he was a 2-time All-American, drafted as a 7th overall pick in the MLL, where he was a 2-time All-Star in 2018 Defensive Player of the Year, then selected to play in the PLL for the Whip Snakes, winning back-to-back PLL championships. Guys, we introduced tonight Matt Dunn. Matt, thanks so much for being on the call with us tonight. How are we doing this evening?
No problem, Kyle. Thanks for having me. Appreciate the intro there. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I know there's a heavy breath full of accolades, but I'm noticing the trend in these accolades. A lot of things happening twice. Is that the deal with you? You can't never satisfied once. Got to happen twice.
I guess so. Well, quite frankly, hopefully a couple of the more recent ones will be more than twice because
I love it.
The college stuff twice. That's all set in stone now. But hopefully we got a couple more of the professional ones.
Doing
just
stuff
making
twice.
Old now that you start to list all these things. I realize I've been playing for so many years.
Well, we love it. We love to see it, man. We love to hear from you and your experiences and your wisdom. And that's what happens when you play so many years. You go on to college, you get to play in 2 different professional leagues. You get to have that wisdom, and we're excited to kind of just dive into that tonight. But without further ado, I want to get into these questions with you. I know you got a ton of stuff to share with us, but I know you've had the privilege, diving back all the way to playing club ball with FCA. You've had the privilege of being involved with FCA as a high school player, as well as being on one of the teams that went out to Vail. Talk to us about that experience, both playing in high school as well as what it was like to be in that beautiful Vail, Colorado.
Yeah. Good question. I was lucky enough to get exposed to FCA back in high school. Drew Wardlow, who's still very involved with the program, was involved then, was one of the guys that kind of, was spending time with us and coaching us and a few of the other guys. But it was awesome. That Vail tournament was one of the best experiences of my life. A, it's just absolutely beautiful out there. B, we had a phenomenal squad, and we, went out to win, got to win the tournament there. And a ton of those guys went on to play Division I. So I still know all those guys today and have played with them or against them since then. But, it's such a great experience. And I think to your earlier point about the FCA part, it was great, and I really enjoyed that. And I've worked with FCA since that point. I coached my brother's team who played in 2018. I was in college, so I graduated high school in 2018. So I coached them when I was in college. And the thing I always liked about it was making the sport of lacrosse into something more than just the sport of lacrosse. And it's an awesome sport. But to me, sports in general are just like, a microcosm of more important things in life. And FCA does a good job of kind of teasing those out and incorporating them into the sport. And I always like that because, sports are such a big part of my life and a lot of people's lives. And to think of it as just a game is a little insulting almost. And FCA does a great job. I just think of all the lessons I've learned from the sport of lacrosse throughout my career that have carried me to different spots in my life. And FCA is one of the steps along the way that has used kind of the sport as a tool for teaching broader life points. And I really enjoyed my experiences, but I also felt like I learned a ton from them. So I'm definitely grateful for that. And the people I've met, guys like Drew, and that have, given me opportunities to be on things like this and try to pass whatever wisdom or experiences I have along to others.
No, that's incredible. I think it's always great to just be reminded that there's always such a bigger picture. Whatever we're doing, as athletes, it's so easy to just put whatever sport we're dealing with as the number one thing in our lives. And you make a great point of just saying it's almost like a disrespect of saying that it's just about that. There's so much more to what is happening, what's happening around you, and just learning those skills and life lessons is so critical. So I couldn't agree with you more. That's awesome. I think too, continuing back, thinking back to continuing, that transition from high school, there's no doubt that was a huge step. Some of these guys being involved in MIAA, but even still going on to college, during that time as a high school player, first of all, what made you choose Maryland coming out of the bat? And what was it like playing for one of the top programs in the country at that time? Still at that time, technically.
Yeah. No, It's funny. I've been asked that question before, like, what made you choose Maryland? As if, like, I had like all the options in the world, and Maryland was
Yeah.
lucky that I selected them. But the reality is, I wasn't very heavily recruited. Well, by like schools like Maryland, I had some other D1 offers and was looking Ivy League, but none of the ACC kind of that top 10 list wasn't really. I wasn't really on the radar for a while, and later towards the end of my junior season, um, Maryland and a couple other schools reached out, and I was always a big Maryland fan growing up. I'm a local guy from Baltimore. Both my parents went to Maryland, so I was a Maryland sports fan growing up. My sister went there, and so her freshman year was like the beginning of my junior year. I remember going and dropping her off on campus and just loving the school. And then something about like when I visited and meeting Coach Tillman, and I knew some of the guys there, and the culture of the program, energy around it, the level of compete, and the same kind of deal like for a guy like Coach Tillman, and it checked out. But I just got the impression that lacrosse, it was more than about just like being a good lacrosse player there. I learned so many lessons from my time at Maryland that I think a normal non-athlete might not get, because I was exposed to things. He forced us to do things we didn't want to do. And I just love that about the school and the program, and got that energy there. So to have that opportunity to go there to me was so exciting. I basically knew it right away when they said, "You want to come here?" I was like, "Yes, absolutely." And so that was awesome. And playing there, it's intimidating at first. It's one of those things, you go in, and I went in and they had just come off a national championship loss, and the starting defense was like 3 All-Americans, and they were young too, like sophomores and juniors. And Jesse Bernhardt was a senior captain at LSM, who's one of the best players I ever played with. And I remember the first day we were there in the fall, we did a red-white scrimmage, and I just remember watching like guys like Jesse Bernhardt and Michael Earhart running on the field, and I was just like, those guys are so much better than me. I'll never play here. And then that kind of shock factor, it eventually settled in. Those guys were great leaders and mentors to me, but the standard they set for when you step on the field, how you act and how you play and what it means to wear that jersey was set from day one. And it was a shock, because even at coming from the MIA, that compete level was next level. And it took me a little while to get used to that, but ultimately it made the experience very rewarding.
And that's such a good point. No, I think back to what you're saying too. Guys, this is a great lesson for you guys watching, that you don't need a slew of colleges recruiting you. Matt was talking about just being recruited by one college, and it ended up being one of the best decisions he made. So just as an encouragement to you guys, as you guys start to focus, whether it's college lacrosse, something you guys want to play, it doesn't have to be having to be recruited by all these colleges, to make it successful. And I think, again, leading into that is a standard that was set once you get in college. Matt definitely realized that was something that was a lot different than in high school. But Matt, it seems like that standard was something you kind of kept once you realized it in college, and kind of kept as you continue to play, throughout college. I mean, fast forward to graduating from college, you had the honor of first playing in the MLL and then on to getting drafted to the PLL. I mean, talk to us about that, taking that standard. I mean, what was it like to make yet another transition to play in a brand new league with a brand new team?
Yeah, it was cool. I graduated in college. I never thought lacrosse would have taken me to where it has today. Because lacrosse, quite frankly, at the professional level, has taken massive steps. And it's been really exciting. And if you asked me in 2016 when I graduated, would lacrosse be what it is, and would I be where I am today with it? I'd say probably not, because I thought at that time that was pretty much the end of my lacrosse career, because I was like, I'll just finish playing Division I at Maryland, maybe a couple of years in MLL, and then I'll go do something else. But the journey has been great. And yeah, to your point about that standard, it's something that I think Coach Tillman and the Maryland program has ingrained in the culture of the program. And so to get through 4 years there and be successful, you have to embrace it. Coach Tillman, in my eyes, to his credit, and to some people's eyes, it's why maybe some people don't like him as much, is that you either buy in or you're out. And so you don't make it through 4 years at Maryland and not buy into the team culture. You might make it through 1 year or 2 years, but eventually to him, the Maryland lacrosse program is the most important thing, and having the right people there that buy in is important. And so to get through that, you really have to buy in, and to be successful there, you have to kind of buy into it and hold other people accountable to that standard. And it kind of becomes ingrained in who you are as a person, as a player. And So you take that to the next level, and all of a sudden what you're used to is playing to a certain level, being at a certain, being prepared for games and being prepared for your matchups and being physically prepared and mentally prepared all the time. And I think I was well positioned to play after college because of how I was trained to play at school. And I think going to the PLL, we got lucky enough to get a bunch of Maryland guys back together, guys that I play with in college that share that kind of mindset. And so that was really awesome, actually.
Nice little reunion for you.
Playing with all these guys, and it's crazy. Like they still they all have their own lives off the field. Everybody's doing their thing, but when it comes to lacrosse, they all have that compete level, and that it's not just on the field. It's getting ready for what they have to do on the field. Preparing mentally, watching film, making sure we understand matchups, making sure you have the right mindset towards the game, putting the team first over yourself, which at the professional level gets more and more difficult because there are more incentives to be individually, successful and stand out. But to see these guys still carry that is pretty inspiring, and it's contagious, and it really makes the game enjoyable.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's so cool to hear. There are so many examples of just, your athleticism, your mental toughness, all these accolades that you have are only going to get you so far, but the successful programs are the ones that ultimately buy in. And it seems like you've been able to take that buy-in and just completely transfer that buy-in from Maryland to the PLL. And I mean, I can imagine, playing in the PLL was an experience of its own. And with that, I mean, talk to us about, here's the fun part, you're winning back-to-back championships in the PLL. Like, how did that feel?
It felt awesome. And I finished my college career in 2015, 2016 with back-to-back NCAA championship losses from Maryland, and that stunk. And that those are just things, because at the time, you put that on a pedestal, and that's what I really wanted, and that was like my goal. And to finish your senior year having lost twice in tough fashions on that goal really hurt. And then it takes some time to get perspective on things. You understand that you grow up a little, and it's more than just winning the game, but you still want to. But then to get back together with a lot of those guys that you went to the Final Four weekend with and had really tough losses, and win back to back. It was really special, and it felt great. And I know a lot of us, I think, felt like we almost carried a monkey on our back, because it was like this stigma, this thing that Maryland always has a good team, but they don't win championships. And the guys won right after we graduated, which is great. But a number of us were like, we still haven't won one. It kind of stinks. Then we got the chance to play together again. That first one felt great, and the second one felt great too. And it wasn't easy. Like, all those games are battles, so it's not like nothing comes easy, but it felt really good.
Oh no, that's such a cool insight of almost knowing that those two PLL championships were almost, to say that the Maryland guys on that team were chipping away at that brunt feeling of not winning a championship, and some would say might have been your kind of your mentality going into those PLL championships. So understanding that you've been in a similar position like this before, but you were definitely working towards a different outcome. Yeah,
for sure. And it was really cool. A special, I'm definitely grateful for it, because I never thought I was going to get another chance, and not as the same chance to not as a revenge thing, but just another opportunity with a lot of those same guys. I never would have thought we would have had that, and we did, and we were fortunate enough to get to capitalize and enjoy that moment. So it was awesome.
No, absolutely. I mean, speaking upon this past season, that year the PLL chose to play a condensed season, and I know you and I were kind of talking about this before the call, but a lot of these guys on the call, they've had to deal with the difficulties of trying to play club season. I know you're talking about, coaching at Loyola Blakefield, dealing with the same struggles. What would you say to these guys as to stay hopeful for a 2021 season about playing in COVID, playing during COVID, and what's to come?
Yeah, that's a good question. And just to be blunt, and from what my experiences and what I know with everybody, it's been hard. And it's been hard for me, transparently. I've been a guy that, since I can remember, has been a part of a team and played a sport every single season and been around my teammates, and always had that kind of team mindset where you're working together towards something. And then for a year straight, that's been kind of taken away. And so it was hard. And quite frankly, it's not in a hindsight way, it's been a little refreshing just to kind of get a little perspective on things that makes you a little more thankful for when you have things, and kind of teaches you hey, I got to control what I can control. What I would say is just, stay positive and stay hopeful, and find ways to make the best out of the time you have. Like, you can't really control whether or not your season's going to start, but you can control how you develop and how ready you are for when it does start. You can find ways to, get in good routines and habits, and maybe do some things that you haven't done before. And quite frankly, I think for a lot of people that this is in a way a little bit of a blessing, where you get the chance to step away from something, and that if you really miss playing lacrosse and being with your teammates, that it's something you should be doing. And if you step away and after a year, 10 months of not doing it so much, you're like, I kind of enjoy the free time, maybe when I do some other things, it's good to know that. And that's something a lot of people don't get the chance to think about, because at least for me, I got very caught up in the day to day. And there are certainly certain things that I'm like, I don't miss that as much as I thought I would, but I was doing it every day because I thought I should. And then there's certain things that I can't wait to get back and do. And I'm like, I know I should be doing that because I think about it all the time and I really love doing it. And so it's not that it's a good thing, but the positive spin on it is it forces everybody to take a little different perspective that you may not have taken if you weren't forced to.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think keeping that perspective is so critical, especially during this time. We try to tell our guys, you made a great point too of this almost being a refresher for you, an unexpected break, and you just having that mentality of saying, all right, this is a break. I can't play lacrosse, but how do I still use this break as a way to take advantage of the time, whether it's recovery, whether it's doing stuff that you normally wouldn't have been able to do. And I think that's so critical. And just as a reminder to everybody on this call, to just take advantage of the time you're given. And just because it doesn't look like the way you expect it to look like doesn't mean you can't still get work out of it and become successful. No,
Yeah,
I think
absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that's great. No, and I know we kind of joked about it, but as I hear you talk more, it just becomes more and more relevant. And just we joked about the two-time thing, the two-time all-star, the two-time championship, the two-time even not winning the championship. It's just kind of this stuff. The two-time keeps coming back, but I think that I just wanted to stop and speak on that for a second, because I think I always come back to you thinking you do something right once. Is it luck? Is it a fluke? Was it meant to be? But you do something right twice, and it's almost like it was meant to be. It was set in stone. And I think speaking on that two-time, you developing that never being satisfied mentality, whether you chose to do it on your own or whether it's just kind of happened naturally to you. I think speaking on a faith component, the Bible tells us never to be complacent in our lives and always striving to be our best version of ourselves. And I think that's what you've done. I think that's incredible to be able to kind of look back on your life to consider that, you never really saw it as, all right, I'm satisfied with the one thing I've accomplished. I'm just going to continue to do what I'm doing and continue to work towards greatness. And I think that's an incredible feat that you've been able to accomplish. And I just want to know, from your perspective, was that something that was kind of ingrained in you, or is that something you kind of learned along the way?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think accomplishing things, I think I got that at a young age of wanting to do things well. I was always good at things that I felt like I could control. So I always knew, school, for example, you study, there's a test. If you put in a lot of hours to study for it, you'll do well on it. Sports, there's natural gift to it, but if you practice enough, you'll get better with it. You're coachable with it. So I think there was a natural wanting to do things well. I think as I grew, though, that only would take you so far. I just learned a lot. I was exposed a lot to other people, and fortunate enough to have really good coaches that pushed me and mentors that pushed me, and people that inspired me to want to be like them. That it kind of just, they kind of taught you, I don't know, it was kind of fun to push to be something more. It felt really good to be at point A and then a year later be at point B and realize you put in a lot of hard work and you got there, and that was a little bit addicting, whether it was with a sport or with your stick work or in the weight room or something like that. And so I ended up really enjoying the process of developing, and that kind of, I think, falling in love with that process piece was really important to me. I found ways, I always had the back of my goals, but I found ways to really enjoy working out and playing was therapeutic for me, and doing those things made me feel like I was making tangible progress towards something I wanted to accomplish. And it felt really good to kind of see success from that.
Yeah.
I think the flip side is, I think the flip side for a lot of people in sports and life like that is, and this is probably you could probably make good references to the Bible for things like this too, is not tying too much value to those successes. And I think people that do really well and win a lot and get a lot of awards and do well in school, they assign a lot of personal value to achieving those certain things. So it's the balance of wanting to, you said, work to be the best version of yourself. That's one thing, versus working to get the championship or the award or accolade solely, and that your value's tied to that. Because that was the problem that I found in college. When I lost that championship, my identity was tied to it, and it really was hard to do that, to lose that. Beyond that, that was a great learning experience for me, and learning to develop for the sake of developing and being the best I can be, and hopefully win a championship. And if I do, great, but if I don't, it doesn't matter that much. That was kind of the step after college. I feel like that really started to click for me, is that being the best version of yourself isn't tied to winning an award or getting an accolade. It's feeling that you're putting everything you can into developing yourself to be the person you want to be.
No, that's awesome. I love that. Matt Dunn speaking some wisdom here. That's what all those years of experience will get you. So
that's what a couple
awesome.
lost championships will do for you.
Guys, we are going to hop into the segment now. And Matt, don't worry about time. Take the time you need for this. We're going to hop into the segment of Matt kind of taking us through some film room. And guys, again, take this one as an opportunity to be able to learn from somebody who has had that experience, been in those great opportunities. And just to share that wisdom. And the second thing, guys, is as you guys are watching this, think of questions for Matt to answer at the end. But Matt, we'll turn it over to you. You can share your screen and go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let me pull it up here. All right, guys. So I know we're going a little long on time, so I won't be too long here. Just want to cover some basic some basic technique stuff for more technical things on the defensive side of the ball. I know we don't have all D guys here. We have some O guys. What I think is interesting about this, and I think on the flip side too, whenever I hear O guys teach things, I actually feel like I understand defense better. Because for defense, when you know what the offense wants to do, it kind of gives you a leg up on what you're trying to understand defensively. And I would say same here. Offensive guys, if you're on this, right, understanding some of these teaching points for what we want D guys to get good at. If you can take advantage of not doing that well, it's a great perspective for the offensive side of the ball. So I think that's just an idea that'll look at some of the stuff through a critical lens and get some value out of it, even if you're not trying to do this exact thing on defense. First things first, just going to go over a quick overview of intro to covering the ball. Kind of break it down to 3 parts. So approach, contain, engage. And all that is approaching the ball. You go from an off-ball position to an on-ball position. Kind of sets up how you're going to cover the ball. And the reason this is so important is because as dodges get tighter to the goal, if you have a poor approach to the ball, the other 2 parts don't really matter because you don't set yourself in a position to do them well. The approach, the things that really matter here are timing. So we want to make sure we get out to our matchup at a good time so they don't, they can't start attacking us before we're broken down. If you're running at a guy as he's moving at you and you don't get there in time, it's really hard to break down and play him. Next is location. So timing kind of feeds into location. If you approach the ball in a good timely fashion, the guy's going to have to break out a little wider to catch it. The further your matchup catches the ball away from the goal, the more time and space you have to operate to drive him away from a dangerous area to score. But the more time your team defense also has to help you. If a guy catches it at 8 yards, not only can he shoot right away, but he can basically do one move, roll into a shot. It's really hard to slide to that. It's really hard to defend it. But if you get a guy to catch it at 15, 20 yards, now he's got to do a lot more work to get to a dangerous area, and your defense can read around that to help you out. Last is form. So once we get good timing and good location, we want to make sure we're broken down in good form. We'll talk a little bit about how that looks, but just athletic posture, ready to move, right? And after we get the good approach, we want to focus on containing the ball. Now, as the ball's further away from the goal, we can contain for longer. And containing is essentially just putting yourself in a good position to funnel a guy to an area of the field you want him to go, and so that you can engage him or drive him out of an area when he gets to that point you need to. So it's basically, for poles, we work on keeping our stick out in front, matching feet, taking good drop step angles, and keeping our head and chest square to the ball so that we're in a good position when the guy tries to enter into a dangerous area to get a good shot off. You're in a position to engage him and drive him out. Angles are really important here, footwork, and lastly, discipline. So you can have great athleticism and great footwork, but if you're a guy that's always going to go and lunge and try to make a big play, it doesn't matter how good your footwork is because the discipline there comes into play and you're going to give opportunities to guys. Lastly, engaging. Engaging occurs right when the guy is about to get into an area where he has an opportunity to shoot. So we can't just contain a guy and shadow him everywhere. Eventually, we got to put our hands on him and keep him from getting to an area. Keys here, good footwork to get ourselves to a good spot, having good balance, so making sure our feet are under us as we do this, and using our stick and hands efficiently so that we can drive guys out. The key here, guys, we'll show a couple clips. I think the big thing, and sorry, I probably could tweak the text here. Taking these general principles, so these are pretty general: approach, contain, engage, and thinking about how they apply to your playing style, thinking about on different areas of the field when you play, like, hey, if I got beat, did I have a good approach to the ball, or was I late, on the first move? Did I lunge at the guy, or did I take a good angle? Did I ever get my hands on him, or did I just run next to him the whole time he got a shot off? So just ways to think about when you're playing. If you can break some of those parts down, it might help you figure out what you need to work on. Guys, here's a quick video I'll let run of just kind of approaching, breaking down, and getting from that, approach to contain to engage. Just a quick example of how you might want to do that.
After we set the gap with our stick out in front, we maintain the gap with our back pedal. We eventually have to close the gap by planning, crossover running, and engaging the dodger with our hands. We're going to approach the dodger, stick out in front, keep the gap with our back pedal, and as the dodger splits and makes a move, we're going to plant, drive, and cross over to engage the dodger and drive them out away from the goal. It's very important that we work to keep our chin in our face and our chest square to the dodger as he splits, although our hips are turning into this crossover run. A lot of times.
And guys, so I'll just breeze it here real quick. If you're a short stick, same idea. Don't worry about your stick out in front. Just worry about keeping that chest kind of square. And the reason here, guys, I'll explain it on the video too. It's just as guys make these moves, if we turn everything this way and run, our hands are no longer in a spot where we can actually engage guys and use our hands to our advantage. Guys can start to get into our body a little more. Also, if you fully turn, change your direction, it's much more difficult. So if you can get to a spot where you can drop and open your hips to move to a certain spot without taking your full torso and upper body there with you, it allows you to use your stick and hands a little more, which we want to use in conjunction with our feet and footwork, so that we can kind of keep a gap between guys and engage them from a strong position.
Sometimes players open up completely and turn their chest and head this way and look back, but my whole chest is open towards the end line or the back corner, allowing the dodger to get into me where I cannot use my hands to drive him away from the goal or my stick to throw any checks. The crossover step is the halfway point of committing to move with the dodger, but also giving us the ability to change direction more efficiently. If I cross over, I'm covering the ground, beat the guy to a spot, but I'm also still able to change direction. If I fully commit to running this way and just turning my head back and Deemer changes direction, it is much tougher for me to take those steps to recover. If I go into my crossover step to change direction, I'm able to use my stick to defend and change direction, but also have my torso still square to him. So as Deemer splits here, I can get my stick in there and change direction much more efficiently and fluidly.
So guys, that's just a couple quick points about using our stick, staying square to a guy, to eventually off a break, keep a gap with him when he moves at you, but then take a good angle, keeping your chest and hands square to him to drive him out. Sometimes if you don't do a good enough job keeping that gap off the start, or you don't transition quickly into that drop step, you might have to turn and run a little more. At that point, you'll probably need a slide or some support. But if you can do a good job keeping that gap from guys and getting your hands on them, you can start to drive them out or turn them rather than chase them to where they're trying to go. Right now, I'm going to show a couple quick clips. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these on the approach portion. So I'm just going to show you a couple examples. This is good approaches here, right here on the backside. Notice 48 does a good job getting out, getting in the stance and forcing a guy back down. So he does a nice job there. And I'll show you why it's a good job in a second, just because we have a clip on the other one where he gets there a little late. Right here, we got 5 here getting out to play the ball. What I like about it is he stays patient, stays on the top side there. He's out and set by the time his man gets the ball. Same here, out and set, forces the guy down to help right there. I know that was Cornet's game plan, so they do a good job just flowing out to meet the ball. Here's an example of an approach where a guy's taking away a strong hand. Up on the guy's right hand, takes it away, turns him back. He's out there set right away and just stays disciplined on that strong hand. So those are a couple quick examples. Here's one where this Army midi over here. Right here, this guy does a good job on the rollback. But on the back side here, we'll see this guy does a good job getting out to his matchup. As you can feel, the ball's about to come over, he gets out, broken down. Here he's taking away the alley, actually, and this was Army's game plan against Cuse here. But he's actually forcing him this direction. The key here is once you decide to force the guy one direction, you can't allow the rollback. And once he forces him this way, he's very patient, sits on the back, and gets a trail check. So there's a couple quick examples of what good approaches look like. Those guys are all out there set. They're not scrambling to get there. They're taking something away when they get there. Usually what they're taking away falls into their defensive game plan. I think those will make more sense now when we watch some poor approaches where guys get beat because of their approach. This first one's a really good example. And guys, I would watch this one because learning how to attack an approach is a very effective way to attack D guys because that's when they're most vulnerable. So that's why D guys, we have to work on our approaches because guys want to attack you when you're moving. If you're not good at getting out and breaking down quickly, you're going to be very vulnerable to get attacked on the approaches. Here's one here, Yale, Virginia on this backside swing. Notice the guy's laid out. So there, whoops, sorry. Let's pause it. The one thing here, right here, ball's there. Notice this guy's approaching now. So this is the timing piece, right? So timing does two things. He's not set by the time the guy gets the ball. And also it allows this guy to creep in on it because he's running out. He never gets broken down, gets hitched for a really good shot opportunity. Right here, we have an approach where this guy's not really stepping up to take anything away. And we'll notice that as this guy goes this way, gets a really clean sweep across the middle. You can kind of tell the reason I brought this up is Denver's defense here is expecting this guy to force him down the side. You can see that they're already pre-rotated to slide down the side. This guy's helping down here as he goes over the top and he doesn't take anything away. The defense isn't set up to help out there. Lastly here, this is going to look a lot like the first example, guys. So we'll see right here and boom. You see how in the first example, the good approach, this guy was already out on this wing. The plays look very similar. As the ball gets out, he's a little late. Because he's late and not up and set to take anything away, the guy can attack the approach and take top side. So you can see how those little things like timing matter so much to get you out to a good spot before your guy catches the ball. Because if you're moving towards him as he catches the ball, it becomes very difficult to cover a guy and a very good opportunity for the offensive player. Here's a video that I'm just going to show quickly of Jesse Bernhardt covering Rob Pannell. It shows more of the contain engage mode. The approach isn't as important. It's a good approach, but because Rob's not in a threatening position back here, it's more watching Jesse use good footwork and his stick positioning and contact points to drive Rob away from the goal. So stick out in front keeps the gap, just like the video kind of plans, tries, takes a crease angle, drives Rob out at GLE, gets good support. His teammates is patient, trailing Rob to X. As he goes up the other side, uses crease angles here. So notice Jesse continuously beats Rob the spots by using angles and not chasing him around. The stuff right in here that I really like, and I'll just show you this quickly, is Jesse right here uses the crease. So Rob can't run through the creases and attack him, but Jesse can as a defender. A lot of defenders will start following guys out here, getting their hands on them, following them around. Jesse kind of uses his crease angle here to take steps. To take steps right here using his crease angle, we call it running the rail, so running close to the rail of the cage here to take a good angle up the crease. And as Rob tries to turn the corner, he's able to get those steps up, get his hands on Rob and drive him out. And guys, that stuff, we would work on all the time at Maryland is those defensive footwork drills where we're constantly running the rail, learning how to navigate the crease, taking the right steps, using our stick out in front as we do it. So a guy like Jesse Bernhardt is a phenomenal athlete, also trained at for years and was very diligent about, his footwork technique, his stick positioning, understanding the tendencies of guys he covered. So that kind of thing we talked about earlier, these guys buying into what it means to play at Maryland for us. A lot of it was just buying into the little details of the little things matter. So stick out in front, proper footwork, being physical at the right times, understanding your matchup, having that competitive edge were things that, don't just come to everybody naturally, but take time to develop. The last clip here is just a quick example teaching point of where we got Dan Bukhari here for Georgetown dodging against a Yale defender, where the Yale defender doesn't really use that stick gap and doesn't get that drop step. And we'll see how the attackman's actually able to take advantage of the fact he doesn't do that. So right here, Boom. And we have another angle coming up. So I'll show you guys, but we just want to notice that without getting that stick gap out in front, so like that first video, without getting that stick out in front and keeping the gap and using that drop step to get your chest around your hands on a guy, this next angle is actually really good right here. So right here, I'll pause it and I'll show you. So look, right here, no stick out in front allows the dodger to attack his space more directly rather than go around. The other thing is, like we talked about in the video, not turning your chest and head completely this way, but fighting to keep it back towards the guy. And the reason being is now look, his chest and head are this way. If the dodger lowers his shoulder into him, automatically hips facing this way, chest facing this way, hands facing this way. Where is this guy's momentum going to go, right? He has no ability to kind of resist the dodge towards the goal because everything is facing that way too. So as he goes up, all his momentum goes up, gets knocked off balance. So I know that was a lot there, and that's pretty quick. But if you guys could almost see how that first video ties into some of the other clips and how the timing and the approaches and things like that matter in an actual game film, I think that's valuable. So just learning to understand how some of those little things as a defender can make a big difference. So for you guys, if you can stop sharing now. If you can find a way to just take one or two of those things of doing a good job, keeping your stick out in front, or taking a really good approach to the ball and focus on getting there in good time, I think something like that can make a big difference for you.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you, Matt, for sharing that. Guys, if you guys notice, whether you play defense or whether you're on midfield and you get stuck on defense, a lot of what Matt was saying didn't have to do with your stick. It all had to do with a lot of your approach and a lot of your positioning. So, guys, that's important for you guys to understand that, playing defense or playing good defense is not always about using your stick and throwing down checks. A lot of it has to do with your approach and your footwork, and that's stuff you guys can work on your own even when you're not in practice. So again, Matt, thanks so much for sharing that wisdom and kind of just walking us through what goes through your head when you're playing defense.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem there. If you guys have questions, feel free to ask. Even if you want to follow up afterwards, feel free to do that. I know sometimes things like that, it's a lot of information, so hopefully some of it sunk in.
Awesome. Guys, we're going to hop into our segment now of allowing you guys to ask Matt whatever question you guys wanted. We've had some sent in already. As we see some coming through the chat, we'll go ahead and ask them. First question, Matt. Growing up, who was your favorite lacrosse player?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a tough one. My path was interesting, I guess. So growing up, I was actually more of like a basketball, football kid. And when I got into lacrosse, I just really looked up to the older high school guys at Loyola. That was when Steele Stanhope was on the team, and he was like the best player in the country. And so I was just like, and all watching him play. When I watched guys at Maryland, I always liked watching like the Brian Farrell, the guys a couple years older than me. So a guy like Brian Farrell, Brett Schmidt, Max Schmidt, even guys when I got to Maryland, like a guy like Jesse Bernhardt, who I in high school watched play a little bit. Those guys I just, I really took a lot from and wanted to emulate their game and got the chance to, know a lot of them well.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. Favorite post-game meal?
I like we would have like what was it? It's a tough one. I want to go between chicken parm and Chick-fil-A because sometimes they would we got the post game tailgates, they get like the Chick-fil-A platters, and those are always a hit, and I love that. But having a good like chicken parm after a game is phenomenal.
Oh, heck yeah, you can't go wrong with either. Did you ever score a goal while playing defense?
Yeah, not a ton. I scored a couple in high school. I actually scored one in college, and it was my senior year Final Four. The Brown 10-man rode us, and I scored a field goal from the other restraining line because they pulled the goalie out. That was my only collegiate goal, and I've scored a handful in the MLL, couple there.
Nice. This one asked, let's see, these are all coming in. Do you have, all right, in middle of a game, what is your go-to check to throw?
I don't throw a lot of like checks. I do, but like not cool ones, I guess. I like I poke check a lot. I guess one would be kind of just like if I'm covering a righty, kind of just like not really a ding dong, but just like a quick like swipe over, like a quick kind of reach over the front side for the stick. And then if guys lean into me a lot, I'll kind of throw like the like two-handed wrap check where you kind of just reach around and see if you can get the stick there quickly. But I don't throw a lot of cool checks. Most of them are pretty just like you see the stick and try to smack it.
Nice. What two-part question. What was your favorite game you've ever played, and what was your hardest game you've ever played?
My favorite game was either that Brown game I was telling you. I was a ton of fun. The quarterfinals or the Final Four of my senior year, we won in overtime against Brown. And then that and the championship game in Philly, the first PLL championship game, was an awesome game. The hardest game I ever played in. The Brown game was also one of the hardest games I ever played in. We won like 16-15, and we never gave up 15 goals, and it was a crazy transition type game, and that was tough. Some of the PLL games this past summer, we played 3 games in 4 days. Like the third game there was like mentally very challenging to stay locked in when you're physically tired, but to mentally kind of be there and be as sharp as you normally would be, because usually you have a whole week to build up to a game.
All right. Going towards switching sports on football here. Super Bowl, Chiefs or Bucks?
I got a feeling the Bucks are going to win.
Hot take. Okay.
And it's solely because I already think it's incredible that Tom Brady took them to this point. That I would want to say the Chiefs, but I got the gut feeling that the Bucks are going to win.
Love it. Would love to hear it. If I'm an offensive guy and you're playing defense, what is the hardest dodge to defend?
Yeah, it's the dodges get harder depending on what the guy can do, if that makes sense. So the hardest dodge to defend is a guy that, to me, runs hard and makes one hard move, but can go to either hand and can score either hand. So if a guy's running at me really hard, usually I have a feeling which way he's going to go, because if he goes the other way, he doesn't want to go that way. But if I have a guy running at me where I'm not sure which hand he's going to go to, and he makes one hard move and goes and will try to turn the corner and shoot, that's the hardest dodge.
Love it, guys. So if you guys are listening, run fast and be able to shoot with your left and right hand. All right, guys. I know we got a ton of comments going, but we want to be respectful to Matt's time and respectful to your time, guys. All right, if you have more questions, send them in. We'll make sure to give them to Matt. And also, guys, if you guys like some of the videos that you're watching of the training, Matt works with First Class Lacrosse. All right, they do a ton of training for both offense and defense. All right, if you saw who he was training with, Deemer class, obviously a lot of knowledge there offensively. You're going to get a ton of knowledge defensively, guys. So if you guys are interested in that, we'll be sending out that information to you guys. Just wanted to thank you again, Matt, for just being on here and kind of sharing with us. Real quick, before I pray us out, any last words for these guys watching?
No, we covered a lot. I appreciate you guys hopping on. I would just follow up on my, my point with the COVID stuff, I guess, and just the current environment is just, make the best of it. Find ways to be productive. You can use it as, use it as an excuse. You can use it as an opportunity. And I know it is hard, and understand that a lot of people feel that way, but there's ways to find ways to make the most out of it, and definitely, take the opportunity and the resources you have to do so. But yeah, I appreciate you guys hopping on. Like Kyle said, I'll pass along our information. Feel free to reach out if you have any more questions. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Well, guys, let's bow our heads. I'll pray out our time. And then thanks again, Matt. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for Matt and his ability to be able to, and his willingness just to serve, his willingness to spread knowledge, Lord, and just help others grow in the sport of lacrosse, and also just throughout life, Lord. We pray that his future endeavors, whether it be in the PLL, whether it be coaching, Lord, they end successfully, God, and just remember what he said, God, that to understand that our identity is not in the significance of the success we are, it's in you, Lord, and it's how we develop through those success and even through those failures, Lord, to help define us as individuals, God. And so we're grateful for Matt. We're grateful for everyone on this call, and we pray that everybody has a great rest of their week. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Awesome, Matt. Thanks so much. Look forward to seeing how you do this summer, man, and we'll be keeping in touch.
Awesome. Thanks, Kyle. Thank you guys for hopping on. Great questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
See you guys. Yep. Thank you guys.